Okay, welcome to this episode of the vlog. I warn all of you that this is going to be a dorkier affair than usual, and it's going to probably be a longer video because today I'm going to go in depth into the Paul McCartney show that I just saw. It was mind-boggling. I have no idea why I'm wearing a Guns N' Roses shirt for a Paul McCartney video, but that's just how it wound up happening. um, so, uh, Absolutely stunning. So I wanted to go through this because I love setlist construction, if you will. Every time I do a concert, I like to design the set list in advance. And I don't like to do the same 1, 2 shows in a row, although a lot of musicians do, which is fine. And one of my all-time heroes in terms of perfect set design is Paul McCartney. Since the 70s, there's been no one better at structuring a rock show than Paul and Wings. Because I have the Wings Over America album, which is a triple live album. It's like 2 hours long. And if you look at the song list on that, it's perfectly designed. He likes to divide his show up into little chunks of like the guitar part, and this is the piano section, and this is the acoustic part. And it's absolutely just, he creates this immersive experience where when a Paul McCartney concert is done, it almost feels like a day has gone by. That's always how I feel, in a good way. Like, it's been such an arc to the show. So we're going to go in depth, pretty much song by song, on the tunes he played in Vancouver. So the show begins, and Paul McCartney, being the most famous musician to ever live, really, you would think he could do a big theatrical entrance. He could do like a curtain drop or a big explosion, or he could have any number of ways to come out. Lord knows he's got the money for it. But they elect to go... They seem to lean towards the minimalistic wherever possible. Like the show, they don't have a big complicated stage setup. They have big screen in the middle, 2 screens off to the sides, some amps, and like a piano up on a platform in the back. There's a couple of little interesting things they do with the staging, but it's not like a 70s or 80s rock band. It's very much they let the music do the talking, which is cool. But so, first of all, it's not even like an arena show in which the lights dim and everyone freaks out and the show begins. Because in BC Place, it was still bright out, and while the roof was closed, it's mostly windows. So for the first hour, even hour and a half of this concert, it was mostly sunny out. And I'm not going to lie, that was a little weird. I was not used to seeing a rock show in daylight. That was odd, but you get used to it pretty fast. But anyway, so he has this big, all these visuals go on before he hits the stage that culminates in a shot of his famous Hofner bass combined with the orchestral part from A Day in the Life where the orchestra goes bomb, that cool thing. And then the screens all dim out, the crowd goes nuts, a spotlight hits the stage, and Paul just walks on. No pomp and circumstance, but well, I mean, there's the big intro, but you would think that like there'd be some sort of crazy opening. He just walks on stage with the band, says hi. He comes out, by the way, holding his Hofner bass, which is not the original 1961 Hofner that he bought, because that was stolen in the Get Back sessions back in the late 60s. But the bass he's using is one that the Hofner company gave him in 63, and that he started using for all the Beatles stuff starting in 63. So it's the Ed Sullivan Hofner, for God's sake. Even though it's not the original, it's perhaps even more famous than the original just for how long he's been using it. So he comes out holding that, and everyone's freaking out, like, oh my God, that's Paul McCartney. And he just doesn't say anything to the audience. He just like points out, and he goes, bah, it's been a hard day's night, and you're right in it. Just starts. So Hard Day's Night is an opener. He's been opening with Hard Day's Night for about 4 years. He started opening, or 3 years, I guess, because at the beginning of the 2016 one-on-one tour, he changed things up and opened with Hard Day's Night. And at the time, he hadn't played Hard Day's Night in a long time. And I thought it was cool. I thought it was a pretty cool opener. But it was kind of a novelty to me. I don't know. When this Freshen Up tour started and he was still opening with Hard Day's Night, I felt like how cool that was had worn off on me. I feel like he could move on to a different opener. Here's the only problem I have with A Hard Day's Night as an opener. The cool thing is it's a famous old Beatles song. It's super upbeat, and it's got that really cool beginning, and everyone remembers it, and so that's awesome. But the reason it's a bit of a novelty for me is because one of my favorite things when I'm at a show and someone opens up the concert and comes out is you hear their famous voice, that voice you've always heard, and they're right in front of you, and that's them. While Paul obviously has that famous voice, and you have all that, and that's not, I'm not saying you don't get that, oh my god, that's Paul McCartney singing, that's him. But Hard Day's Night was sung by John, so to open up the show with a song that John sung is a little odd to me, but it's cool. I mean, it's a Lennon-McCartney song. So it's very cool to see him do it, and it was a cool novelty when he started playing it. But what you do get in Hard Day's Night is in a little pre-chorus bit that Paul sings on the original recording. When I'm home, everything seems to be right. That's Paul. And to see him sing that is really cool. After Hard Day's Night, he could do any of 3 songs any given night. He has 3 songs that he rotates out. He will sometimes do the song High, 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 which is a fun Wings tune from the early 70s. He will sometimes do Save Us, which is a song from his album New, which is no longer his newest album, which is a fun song. At my show, at the show in Vancouver, he did my least favorite of the 3. He did Junior's Farm, which is a Wings song from the mid-70s. Not a bad song, just happens to not be my favorite of those 3 great songs. But still impossible not to enjoy it. Junior's Farm, I mean, it's a great little tune. And after that song is the first time he addresses the audience, and he says, like, hello, Vancouver, we're going to have a good night tonight, whatever. And then he says, we got some, I love what he does here. He says, we're going to play some old songs, some new songs, and some in-between songs. Usually when an artist says something like that, it's because they're trying to segue into a new song. But when he does that intro, old songs, new songs, in-between songs, this one's definitely not a new song. And they go into All My Lovin'. All My Lovin', I wasn't really expecting to see. All My Lovin' is kind of a change-up. Earlier this year, he switched his 3rd song from Can't Buy Me Love, which meant there were 2 songs from Hard Day's Night in the first 3, which was cool. I loved seeing Can't Buy Me Love, but I love seeing All My Lovin' even more. How many times did I use the word love in that sentence? But the reason All My Lovin' blew my mind is because he's playing it 3rd in the set. He's got the Ed Sullivan Hoffner, and that song is extremely important because it's the first song the Beatles played on their first Ed Sullivan appearance. So to see him on stage doing that with that bass, with that band, it's also just a great song. It's a 56-year-old song. That was one of the first moments in the show where I'm just sitting there like, oh my god. It's unbelievable. After All My Lovin', Letting Go, which is a Wings song from their 1975 album Venus and Mars. It's not necessarily my favorite Wings song. It's a solid little song, but Paul and his band knocked the live arrangement out of the park. It's a little bit of an extended arrangement from what you get on the album, and it's got the big horn section who shows up in the audience every night. They kind of change up where they put them. In this case, they were in the they were by section like 214 or something. He has a horn section out in the arena. That's one of those times that you get an actual like arena rock moment with this band, is to have a sax section, or not a sax section, just a horn section out in the audience. And they're a fun little horn section. They're great. I forget what their name was. They had a name for the horn section, but I forget. And they do a really awesome arrangement of Letting Go that is so fun. Love that one. After that, the first new song. By new song, I mean it comes off his album Egypt Station, which just came out last year. It was a song called "Who Cares," which I have to be honest, I had not heard before this. I didn't go and listen to that. I haven't heard the whole album. I've heard a few songs from it, but "Who Cares" wasn't one of them. And he introduces it as this is a song about bullying. If you're wondering who cares, I care. And he did the song. I gotta be honest, probably because it was sandwiched between so many incredible, memorable songs. I don't remember a lot about it. I don't remember it being like a song I didn't like, but it's not my favorite new Paul song. But after that, he goes into to Gotta Get You Into My Life, which again features the horn section quite prominently. And I'm trying to think. I think this may have been the first time I ever saw Paul do Got to Get You Into My Life. I don't think he did it last time I saw him. And I mean, there's almost nothing I can say about the Beatles songs because the Beatles catalog is almost like the rock and roll Bible. It's like, these are the songs that matter. So anytime Paul plays a Beatles song, it's like, oh my God, that's the guy. So can't really even say enough positive things about that. And then after that, oh, I forgot to mention when he goes into Who Cares, that's the first time in the set list. The first new song is the first time in the set where you start to see people get up, take their bathroom break. It's what people do during the new songs. It's just what happens. But I always laugh when people do that because like people got up and went to the bathroom like, you're going to miss, Gotta Get You Into My Life, haha. And then so he does that and then he plays his second song from the Egypt Station album, and that's the song Come On To Me. And I actually, out of all the songs that I've heard from his new album, that one I enjoy the most. It's a cool song. It's got some classic, to me it's got some Wings vibes, particularly in the weird bridge part where it goes like na 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 na. That's very Wings to me. And so that song is good on the album, and it's awesome live. Also, Paul's voice has obviously changed over the years. I mean, 55 years have gone by. Of course, his voice has deepened somewhat. But it's cool because when he plays the new songs, that's the way you know them, is with his current voice. So then, it's like, oh, hey, that's the guy, So his voice doesn't sound any different on the new ones because he just recorded them. So after that, he gets rid of the Hofner bass for now. Don't worry, he'll bring it back. And switches. Oh, he also takes off his jacket, and that's when he makes his comment that he's been making for years. This is going to be the one wardrobe change of the whole evening. Says that every show, but it's still funny because every time he takes off that jacket without fail, the audience like, ow, ow, and he has to like stare out and be like, what? I'm just taking off my jacket. And so he switches to electric guitar, which is like a pink guitar with people on it. It's weird. You have to find a picture of it. But it's been his go-to electric guitar for a few years now. And he plays Let Me Roll It, which is from my favorite post-Beatles album by any Beatles member, the Band on the Run album by Wings in 73. And great song, great little riff. That's a song that Paul always plays live. Last 10 or 15 years it's been in the set list. I wonder if he could change it up now. It's a great, great song, but it's interesting. He performs it so much for being a song that's not necessarily in his top 10 or 15 most popular songs, but it's in his top 10 or 15 most played songs. But it's fun live, so I can't really say anything about it. And he always goes into his little mini cover of the Jimi Hendrix Experience, the Foxy Lady. Always does that, and then he always tells a story about Jimmy. I seem to remember at the last Paul McCartney show I saw back in 2016, he made some comment about how Jimi Hendrix was from, or at least spent time in Vancouver, but he didn't make any such comment this time. But that was fine. It was a great show, or it was a great song. It's a fun little jam, even though he has done it a bunch of times. And then after that, they go into I've Got a Feeling, which is awesome. I mean, Let It Be era Beatles. Might be my favorite era of the Beatles is Abbey Road, Let It Be. And the only thing I don't love about the live version of I've Got a Feeling is that their guitarist in this band, whose name is escaping me at this point. By the way, his current band is amazing. It's the second best band that he's ever been with. But they're an astonishingly tight live band. And everything, there's no pre-recorded canned stuff. So, like, all the little string parts that, even though he doesn't actually have a string section or orchestra with him, their keyboardist, Wick, plays all the orchestral parts in the show on a keyboard. It's just insane. But anyway, so their guitarist sings the John part in I've Got a Feeling. And he's not a particularly good John Lennon impersonator, but you can kind of tell he's trying. It's not my favorite part when you get to that part. Of course, the John part in that song is the everybody had a good year, everybody let their hair down. One of my favorite tunes in the Beatles catalog for having the Paul part and the John part that are almost completely different songs that intertwine within each other. But yeah, so that's another song that he pretty much plays every night. He always does that one. And then he gets rid of the electric guitar and goes to one of my favorite parts in the set, which is where he walks up this little ramp and gets behind the piano. And just having Paul McCartney sit behind the piano gets a huge cheer from the audience because everyone's like, oh my God, you know? Because you think of all the great Paul McCartney piano tunes, you know, Let It Be comes to mind and Live and Let Die comes to mind. So he does a 4 or 5 song chunk. Let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 song chunk of piano songs. Opening with a song that I was really excited to see in his set list this year because he hasn't played it for years and years. I'm trying to think if he's ever played it with his current band. The song is Let Him In from Wings at the Speed of Sound. Because that was a big hit back in '76, but he's got so many big hits that often a lot of them fall by the wayside in the live set. But yeah, to see Let Him In come back on this tour is really fun. Even just the very beginning, the do 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 do, the Big Ben sound thing. But yeah, it's a fun song live that was one of those tunes that I didn't think Paul would ever play live again, and he has on this tour, and I'm enjoying it. So that's the first time I've seen him do that tune. And then after that, he goes into what has been his usual piano set for a while. He plays My Valentine. The first time I saw Paul McCartney was in 2012, also at BC Place, and at that show, that was his brand new song from his album he did in 2012 that was more of like a jazz standards album, Kisses on the Bottom. And that song was one of his only original tunes on that album. And it was fun. It was cool to see it live then. I'm surprised that the song My Valentine has survived in the set for 7 years without fail, but it's a good little tune. And I think it's because, his wife comes to the shows pretty much every time. I think because almost every concert video I've seen of Paul, he says, this is a song I wrote for my wife, and she's in the audience right now, which always gets a cheer. But yeah, that's his love song to his current wife, whose name I forget. But it's after that's awesome. So 1985. That is an album track. It's the last song on the Band on the Run album, and it's one of my favorite Wings songs ever. It might be my favorite Wings song. I just love that song so much. I remember looking at the set list before the first time I saw Paul McCartney in 2012, and a few weeks before the concert I was going to, he started playing that song live for the first time. He'd never done it live, and he put it in the set list. And he has not taken it out of the set list for 7 years. Again, that's one of those songs I didn't expect to stay in the set list for so long, but I'm never going to complain. I love that song so much that I want him to play it until the day he retires. So 1985 is so cool. So Band on the Run happens later in the set list, but I always, when that song ends, when 1985 ends, I always expect it to go into the reprise of Band on the Run that happens at the end, because that's the way it happens on the album. But obviously he's not going to play a little piece of Band on the Run before it comes into the main set. Anyway, after that comes the big finish of the piano set with his first non-Beatles hit, Maybe I'm Amazed, which comes from his 1970 self-titled debut solo album. Maybe I'm Amazed is an interesting song because Paul is 77 and his voice has changed, and that song was obscenely high even when he wrote it. Next year will be 50 years ago. But you know what? He actually, and I was a little nervous. I was like, because he does, I will be honest, he does strain on the high notes now, but I don't care. It's Paul McCartney. I was surprised by how well he handled that song. It actually went pretty well. He's learned how to adapt that song to the way his voice is now. And it's just every time he plays that song, that's a song he will play forever, it feels like, and it's one of his biggest songs. It's one of the songs he has to play every night, and for good reason. It's awesome. And his band nails it. The guitarist, who, as I previously said, I can't remember, nails the solo, and it's great. You almost forget that the original recording of that song, every instrument was Paul. So everybody in that band is playing, like the guitarist is playing Paul's guitar part, the bassist is playing Paul's bass part. But no, the current band absolutely nails that song. Anyway, after that comes another really cool section of the show, the acoustic part, where he switches out for an acoustic guitar, and the band, like Abe, their drummer, who is just so fun to watch. I love Abe Laboriel Jr., he's been Paul's drummer since 2001. This whole band has been with him since 2001. It's almost 20 years running now. It's the acoustic set of the show. Abe comes forward to the main stage and plays like a minimalistic, almost skiffle kit. And the acoustic section of the show is just so amazing. And they open it with "I've Just Seen a Face." And that was one of the times that the crowd really roared for "I've Just Seen a Face." It's so cool to see Paul sing early Beatles stuff too. And so that's cool. Not that that's a super early song. It's kind of mid-era Beatles, but it's cool. It's a fun, upbeat, semi-country song. Then after that comes one of my favorite things. So for the beginning of the one-on-one tour in 2016, which I got to see the 4th show of, he really expanded the acoustic section of the show by adding 2 really amazing tunes that I didn't expect him to ever bring out in his live set again. And one of them is the next song he goes into, where he says, "We're going to go back in time." And I mean, before the Beatles, we're going to go to the Quarrymen. And this song was particularly moving on this night because it was the 62nd anniversary of the day Paul McCartney met John Lennon, and they eventually formed the Quarrymen. And I knew that going in. I had just found that out online, and it was really cool because when he did that song, he was like, "Hey, someone's holding up a sign that says 62 years ago today, I met John. Is that true? Wow, that's really cool." That was a funny moment. That was amazing. But, so yeah, he talks about the Quarrymen, and he actually plays "In Spite of All the Danger," which is the first recording that, well, they weren't the Beatles yet, the band that would become the Beatles, ever made. The Paul McCartney written song, "In Spite of All the Danger." That song, the recording for that song dates to 1958, meaning that his set list spawns 60 years of material from 58 to 2018. Wow. Don't even know what to say to that. That's just stunning. It blows my mind. So yeah, he does "In Spite of All the Danger." In spite of all the danger. And so yeah, now we're no longer on the one-on-one tour. It's now the Freshen Up tour, and I wasn't sure if he would keep "In Spite of All the Danger" in the set list, but he did, and I'm thrilled. I hope he always keeps that in the set list. After that, he goes into "From Me to You." I hadn't seen him play "From Me to You" before. Really early Beatles tune. It was so cool to see that song live. He did it acoustically, which was cool. Like I said, part of that set list. "From Me to You." So cool to see that. Then "Dance Tonight," which hadn't been in the set list for a while. I believe "Dance Tonight" is from his 1997 album Flaming Pie, which to me still, I kind of consider that to be a new McCartney song, even though it's 22 years old. But by the scope of his career, it's relatively new. So yeah, he does "Dance Tonight," which is fun because Abe, the drummer, gets to do a whole bunch of like weird dance moves, and then the crowd laughs. It's also a cute little song. He plays it on a mandolin, which is fun. And then after that, he continues on his early Beatles story. He says, "Well, continuing the story, eventually we became the Beatles, and he talks about going into Abbey Road Studios for the first time with George Martin and being really nervous to sing his lead part in Love Me Do. And he says, but I promise I won't be nervous today. And they go into Love Me Do, which again, that was the other song that he added to his set list for the one-on-one tour in 2016. So in spite of all the danger and Love Me Do, two songs I never expected him to play again, and to just see him do it blew my mind. And I'm glad he still is. I'm glad that 3 years after that, he's still playing it. Love Me Do. I mean, Love Me Do is not my favorite Beatles song, but it is the first one that ever came out, and just to see him singing it is amazing. And then after that, he tells a story about the civil rights movement of the late 60s. And plays completely solo without the band the song Blackbird. And that's always one of those times that the audience just melts to see him do Blackbird. And at that point, there's another little cool, one of the few interesting staging things they do is that he stands on a platform that raises way up in the air, and he sings Blackbird and the next song in the set, Here Today, up on the platform. Here Today is a particularly cool song that's off his what album is that on? Pipes of Peace from 1982. And it's a song he wrote right after John had died, a song about John Lennon and about all the things he wishes he could have said to him. So that's always a tearjerker moment, and that's again him completely solo with an acoustic guitar up at the top of the platform. Then the platform comes down, and after Here Today, that's when I consider to be sort of the halfway point of the show. Here's the interesting thing about a set list. So after that, he goes into the only song he played from the 2013 album New, the song Queenie Eye. Realistically, Queenie Eye could be the first song in his set, and his set could only be the second half of what is his show, and nobody would bat an eye. Because that would make it an 18-song show, which would be a normal length concert. It's interesting. Paul McCartney is so famous and so popular that he almost doesn't need to do a 3-hour show. He could totally go out there, play for an hour, hour and a half, and leave, and no one would even complain. I feel like people would still be like, we just saw Paul McCartney. The fact that he puts in the 3 hours and does like a huge arc of a show is just, I'm just so thrilled that he does that. Anyway, so this is the second part of the show where it's no longer done in chunks. It's now him just bouncing around instrument to instrument. At first, so he starts the set on an upright piano, which is interesting because it's got a screen on it. I remember it didn't used to. That used to be just like a psychedelically painted upright piano, but they put a screen on it about 3 or 4 years ago, which added to the psychedelic visuals. And he plays the song Queenie Eye, which I've always actually kind of liked. It's a song from the New album, which is no longer his new album. And then after that, still on the upright piano, Lady Madonna, song that will always be in his set list from here to eternity. And just, what can you say about Lady Madonna that hasn't already been said? Fun to see him do it live. Then after that comes his song that has been kind of, I don't want to say controversial, but people are like, really? Really, Paul? And that's his new single from his latest album, Egypt Station, from 2018, the song Fuh You. F-U-H-U, which now technically the lyric is, I just want it, fuh you, but it's a little unnerving to hear a 77-year-old man sing, I just want it for you, and the song is clearly, it's meant to be suggestive. I just want it for you. I just want it for you. It's weird. It's a little, he has a youthful energy to him, but still, it's like, oh my God. It's like when your grandparents are flirting. It's like, oh, no. I'm leaving the dinner table right now. But that's kind of how it feels. But, oh well, he's Paul. He can do what he wants. So after that song comes, he introduces, we're going to play a song from Sgt. Pepper's, and everyone goes crazy. And he plays, it's funny. Out of all of the songs from Sgt. Pepper's to play, he chooses Being for the Benefit of Mr. Kite. That could be the most obscure song from that album. Cool song to sing. I'd rather see him do Lovely Rita or Fixing a Hole. That'd be cool. But still, just being like, wow, we're seeing For the Benefit of Mr. Kite. He doesn't do a lot of stuff from the really psychedelic Beatles period, which is fine because, to be honest, the 1967 psychedelic period is my least favorite Beatles period. I mean, Sgt. Pepper's is a great album, but I mean, my least favorite Beatles songs are still some of my favorite songs. I mean, the Beatles catalog is they really didn't have a lot of duds. So I'm not saying I don't enjoy the song Being for the Benefit of Mr. Kite. I just think there's better choices. And he's been playing that song for a few years now. After that, he gets out a ukulele that he announces is the ukulele that George Harrison had given to him as a gift. And he says that he went over to George's house one time to show him, I learned one of your songs on the ukulele. And he plays Something in the Way She Moves. I've seen him, so every time I've seen Paul McCartney live, he's done this song, Something. It's one of those that the first time I saw him in 2012, I wasn't ready for how poignant it would be. Because it starts with him playing it on a little ukulele. Something in the way she moves. And it's a little bit silly. And it's like, oh, that's kind of cute, Paul singing a song. But then for the bridge part or the chorus part or part B or whatever you want to call it, you're asking me where my love grows. He goes into a more sort of standard figure rather than the peppy little ukulele part. But like, yeah, so starting with the you're asking me where my love grows, the bass and a little hi-hat starts coming in. Boom. You're asking me where my love grows. You know that bit? No, but it slowly builds with the band until it comes to a full climax in the dun 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 dun, and then the guitar solo comes in, and the whole second half of the song, Something, is fully like the arrangement on the album, even though it's a George Harrison song. That's one of those songs you wouldn't expect to see at a Paul McCartney show unless you're like me and you study the set list, because he has played it for years and years and years. But it's cool to see him do it, and just having it build from just being him standing on the stage with the ukulele to having the full band play the Abbey Road arrangement is just wow. Abbey Road is, by the way, my favorite album that anyone has ever made. And that's not the end of what he would play from Abbey Road, but we'll get to that later. After that, he plays what some historians have called the worst Beatles song of all time, but I don't know if that's true. It's the song Obla Di Obla Da from the White Album. It's fun live, though. Everyone sings along, and he's got like Rastafarian Jamaican colors coming off the screen. He's got the red, yellow, and green going. Because that song, he's always said, came from this Jamaican guy they met somewhere in their travels, who, whenever they would say hi to him, they'd be like, hey, how are you doing today? He would say, obla di, obla da, life goes on, brah. And he loved that saying so much that he put it into a song. So you got the Rastafarian colors, and you got a fun vibe there. And then after that, one of my favorite songs to hear him do live, and one of everyone's favorite songs to hear him do live, Band on the Run. I love that song because it's one of those songs in 3 parts. That's one of my favorite things is 70s tunes. It was big in the 70s to have songs, rock songs, that were kind of in movements. You know, Bohemian Rhapsody comes to mind, songs like that. And Band on the Run is another one of those songs where, you know, because it starts out with do 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 sitting in these 4 walls, and then you've got, I love that guitar riff from the second part of the song. Gotta giving it all away. And then, of course, the big Band on the Run finale. And seeing that song live is just, honestly, every time I see that song live, I'm just sitting in my seat just like, oh my god, this is amazing. That's one of those songs that he will continue to perform until the end of time, and I am okay with that. And then he plays another song from the White Album, Back in the USSR, which is fun, because That's one of the few times that they have a sound effect going. Well, before that song starts, you hear the sound effect of the airplane just as it starts the White Album. That airplane sound effect, that starts that song, and that's cool to see. And then, so after that comes his big finish. The 3 songs that have ended his main set for probably 10 years, maybe longer, and just should always end his main set from here to the end of time. The first one is Let It Be. First time I saw him play Let It Be live, I cried really hard. That song, if you watch my vlog post from yesterday from the show, I included, I said I wouldn't do this, but I included Let It Be in its entirety as the finale to sort of that vlog. And that was cool, but it was not the finale of that show, because after Let It Be comes Live and Let Die, which is so funny because you don't expect, because this whole show, of course he's not going to do pyrotechnics, he's Paul McCartney, so the whole show is just music, but then Live and Let Die, fire, 6 fire columns, fireworks. Fun fact about this song, not nearly as much pyrotechnics as the first time I saw him. First time I saw him was also at BC Place Stadium, and an absolutely insane amount of pyro went into the air. And literally, we were watching it scorch the ceiling. Pyro was bouncing off of the ceiling. And if you look up Band on the Run, Paul McCartney, Vancouver, 2012, you'll see it. And then it was a big news story for the next couple weeks that BC Place, I think, fined him for damaging their ceiling. Which is so funny. Paul McCartney actually, and all of the concert review headlines from that show were, Paul McCartney literally blows the roof off BC Place. That was funny. I really noticed that at this show, the pyrotechnics were significantly scaled down, but it was still fun. And then he ends his main set with possibly the most famous Beatles song of all time. Not even, I don't know why, but I've never gotten into that song. It's never been my favorite, probably because it's so friggin' long. But Hey Jude. I mean, you have to end the main set with Hey Jude. You just have to. And the na-na-na-na-na part is, if anything, longer than it is on the album. It's probably a 9 or 10 minute live arrangement. And he does this whole thing where he's like, no, I want just the girls to sing. Oh, I forgot to mention that at some point during this set, I forgot what song he was introing. He says, all right, I want the girls to give me their best Beatles scream. And you hear that distinctive noise from all the archival Beatles footage, which is every girl in the stadium screaming at the top of their lungs. And Paul goes up to the mic and goes, that sound really brings me back. Anyway, so he gets the girls to sing a part. Then he goes, now just the men, now everyone. And it's a whole party. And then that song ends and he walks off stage. And that, again, like, he's played 32 songs up to this point. That could easily be the end of his set. It's not, because he comes back for encores. Here's one thing about the encore that shocked me. I really, really, really expected him to play Mull of Kintyre. Mull of Kintyre is Paul McCartney's British Commonwealth song. He has never once played it in the United States, but he plays it pretty much every time he plays the UK, pretty much every time he plays Australia or New Zealand or Canada. Any of the British Commonwealth countries. It's weird. He's decided that that's his UK connection song. He did not play it at this show. Actually, I looked it up, and I don't think he played it on his Canadian tour last year either. I don't know. He used to bring out the Delta pipe band, the local police pipe band, to play the song with him the last 2 times I saw him, and that was really cool. But not this time, but oh well. His encore is still awesome. He opened the show with Birthday, which I was really, opened his encore with Birthday. Birthday's not my favorite song. In Las Vegas, he had opened his encore with I Saw Her Standing There. Oh, that would have been cool to see, but he didn't play it at the show, but oh well. Actually, I think at his Las Vegas show, he had Steven Tyler come out, so I think that's why they played I Saw Her Standing There. But we get Birthday at this show. He dedicates it to anyone in the audience whose birthday it may be. Actually, he says, I dedicate this to anyone in the audience who has a birthday coming up sometime in the next year. Plays that. And it's fun. It's the next song that I'd never seen him play live before. That was fun. I am, of course, referring to Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club band. He doesn't play the full version of Sgt. Pepper's. He plays the reprise, I never know how to pronounce that word, version from the end of the Sgt. Pepper's album. When they come back and they sing the slightly different version of the song that goes, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, we hope you have enjoyed the show. Which is fitting because it's in the encore. And he goes straight from that into Helter Skelter, which is so cool live. Oh, every time, like, that's a song he's got to play live forever because it's such a heavy song. And that's so cool to see him. And that's the end of the show, except for his big finish, which I did not tape for the vlog because I was like, you know what, guys, this one's for me. He ends, so, okay, my favorite piece of music of all time is the Abbey Road medley. Everything from, I think it's Sun King to the end is a complete masterpiece. And he plays the last 3 songs from the Abbey Road medley to close his set. The Abbey Road medley also is the end. It's the last portion of the last Beatles album recorded. So if you listen to the Beatles catalog in the order it was recorded, it's going to end fittingly with the song The End. But so he starts with Golden Slumbers, into Carry That Weight, into The End, which and he's done that for a while. It's no secret that he's going to close the show with that, but there's just no better way. There's no better way he could close a show than that. Because now his whole 38-song set ends with possibly my favorite lyric in music history, partially just due to its context. Just the fact that the Beatles catalog and this Paul McCartney live show and all of his live shows end with, and in the end, the love you take is equal to the love you make. Bum, boo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. And he does address the audience once before the show's over. Thank you for making this night special, which we know he says every night, but still, we appreciate the gesture. And then he leaves, and the whole audience sits there stunned for a bit before filing for the exits. And that is the Paul McCartney show. So if you get a chance to see him, you can't not see him. I know he's got 2 more shows coming up to either finish off the Freshen Up tour or finish off this leg of the Freshen Up tour. We'll see if he announces any more dates. And that's it for the Paul McCartney show. So it's a stunning and inspiring lesson in setlist management to just go through like the history of Paul's set lists, which I have because I'm a dork. Thank you for watching the longest vlog in my history. I always get people telling me, Graham, I like your videos, but you gotta make them shorter. And so I have responded to them by making a 45-minute video. No, but I knew I wanted to go fully in depth, and I wanted a dorky video. Hopefully, maybe some Paul McCartney fans will come see a full-on in-depth analysis of his show. We'll see. Thanks so much for watching. For those of you who don't know, I'm also a professional live musician. Check out my description for a full list of all the tour dates I have planned up to this point, with plenty more to be announced always. Also in my description is where you can find my music, links to where you can find my music, where it's sold or streamed online. Subscribe to my channel if you're enjoying these videos, and ring that notification bell if you want to be notified every time I upload a new video, which will be tomorrow and every day for the foreseeable future. And like this video if you liked what you saw. Thanks so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed this wild, long analysis of a wild, long Paul McCartney show. Thanks so much for watching. Catch you again tomorrow.